So Claire, go ahead and introduce yourself and the ages of your children.
Okay. I am Claire Castine. I'm in Rocky Point, North Carolina, and I have three kids. I have a 15-year-old stepson. He's about to be 16, and he was 7 when I met him, so he's all grown up. And he actually just started online school, so that's a new world for him as well. And then I have a daughter who just turned 5. Her name is Alma. Sorry, the 16-year-old is Lucas. Alma is the 5-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old named Ewan.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing and share with us why you wanted to join the online Flourish co-op.
I have been very interested in the idea of homeschooling my children, I think before I even had children. And now that Alma's reaching the age where she would typically be going into a public school situation, I'm looking more into my options. And I just came across you on the Christian Moms group, which I was also just needing community and longing for that connection. And you happened to come about. And then you had also mentioned the Flourish Co-op. And I was just really excited to look more into that because as much as I would love to be in a co-op in person, which still might happen as well, um, we live in a world where it's so nice to be able to connect to others all over. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm here. And yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really cool that not only can we use resources in person, but also online, and that we can talk to people from all over the world. I find that completely fascinating and just so many different journeys that you wouldn't have experienced if you honestly didn't meet them online.
Certainly.
And what do you like most so far about the Flourish Co-op?
The community. I am so thrilled to hear how not only popular the idea of homeschooling, I think, is growing, but also just meeting different women and families that have this desire to do more of that connecting and just to have and make new friends, to hear about other people's lives and where they are, whether in the country or out of the country.
Mhm.
And I think after 2020, everyone lost community, everybody. Um, and it just so happened that I was working a job that was in a home-like environment. Alma was a newborn, but I was able to take her with me. And for that whole first year of her life, she was at work with me. And then 2020 happened, and we left this situation that we were in, and I stayed home with her. And we were just cut off from everything, everybody. We were a part of a massive community, and that all kind of just slipped away at the same time. And so for years now, we've been very isolated. And while we have wonderful people in our lives, this teeny little village, we had a really big one. And so I'm thrilled to be a part of others' lives from all over because we just miss that. And so um, I actually realized it's probably been about 6 months ago that in my faith walk as well, we were truly missing something. And I had this dream where there were plants everywhere and there were roots just hanging out from these plants, but there was no soil.
Mm.
And I clearly felt like I was hearing soil, you need soil, you need soil. So I
Somewhere to
had
be rooted.
right. So I had started praying, please help me find this soil. Please help me find this soil. And in our life in general, it seems like there's these little pots of soil that are coming up all over. And this happens to be one of them.
That's so sweet. I love that analogy. I'm such a sucker for like a garden analogy.
Oh, absolutely. How can you not relate all of life to growing plants and food? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I
it's through
totally agree.
all throughout scripture. So,
And
yeah.
I'm so glad that the Flourish Co-op has been able to be a part of that for you too.
Me too.
And
It's
let's see
the
here. So
beginning, I
then
feel like.
what was that?
I said it's the beginning, I feel like,
Yeah.
just the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you like, or what do you think of the resources within the Flourish co-op?
I am enjoying them, and personally, I don't think I've utilized them to the fullest yet. So I'm still learning through Trello,
Mhm.
and I had never even heard of that resource actually. So it's probably me also trying to get used to utilizing what's there for me.
Yeah.
And scrolling through that, I really appreciate that it's all kind of like in one place, and especially the planning, the weekly and monthly planning. I really struggle with structure sometimes. I'm kind of a free floating butterfly. That can be a good and bad
Yeah.
thing. And so our family is very much that way. So I really appreciate being offered those sorts of source resources. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So that I can kind of like rein myself in and say, like now that we're getting more serious about this, to create a better structure for my kids and myself.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking a bit about personalities the other day, and it's like, yeah, there's pros and cons to each of them. Where it's like, yeah, you can go with the flow really well, but sometimes when you need structure, it might not be the easiest. Whereas, you know, I don't find myself to be as go with the flow actually. And I can do a little bit better with structure, but it does need a little bit of wiggle room for like the realities of life. But yeah, I'm not as go with the flow as I used to be in the past because of the structure that I've like had to put in place, honestly, because when I didn't, I was personally so much more stressed. Like I felt
Yeah.
like I was flailing and failing all at the same time.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I've been. So around the time that I met you and found out about the co-op, it was getting to a boiling point.
Mm,
Like all of these kind of goals and ambitions were there. And that's kind of how my life has ebbed and flowed. I've always been someone who's a dreamer and an idea person and ambitious. Sometimes it's, making those things pan out that I struggle with. And so I think about the time that we had kind of met, that's where I was, is just,
mhm.
I know that I need to do these things. I want to do these things. How am I going to be the most successful at them?
Yeah.
Always been seasons where I feel like opportunity has been given to me where it's like, okay, you know what structure looks like, you know how to utilize that.
Mhm.
Um, so here you go. So not only is something like Trello and the resources that you've added on there been helpful, but really, again, back to the community, people that have been doing this for years that have now had kids that have graduated and, are now adults, um, that can speak on like the successes, the things that work, just really good, helpful experiences that make me feel better about, how it's going to pan out.
Yeah.
I love experience. We run this nonprofit, and I write grants for them often, and I always kind of try to elaborate on the fact that it's hard to always like collect data just based on like numbers alone, or to like quantify the success just based on certain information. But
Yeah.
when you listen to people's experiences and you hear stories, that's when things really start to make sense and come alive. And that's how I feel about listening to others like responses in the group, just talking about how things
Yeah.
have gone.
It's so interesting because yeah, there's so many ways you can look at success, before we were kind of talking about failing, like looking on the other side of success, like, okay, well, if you get back up after you failed, you learned a lesson. So like failing forward, that term I really enjoy because it's like, okay, it's a part of the process. You're learning. There's so many equations to success, and there's so many different things you can look at for what success means, and it can mean different things to people. So I really enjoy the community aspect of the co-op as well. And what's unique about this co-op is I made it to where it's very like the moms don't have responsibility in this co-op. A lot of co-ops you'll see it's, a co-op, a cooperation in the sense of like each mom needs to come and teach a class or something like that, is responsible for something. But I've
Mm,
set it up more so to where it's, nobody has really any responsibilities besides me and like maybe people I collaborate occasionally and bring in. But
mhm.
like it's really a cooperation in the sense that we're all here and able to just share our experiences with each other, because I have experiences that you haven't had, and you have experiences that I haven't had, and other people have older kids than us. And, we're in the phase of younger kids and are able to remind them of what that's like. And so, like, it's
Right.
really a cooperation of mentorship in the sense of like, we're just all able to learn from each other's experiences and answer each other's questions. And I find that quite beautiful.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I love the idea of, a co-op where people are, given responsibilities. Right now, my daughter's in a preschool that is a co-op, so families are highly involved. We have obligations per month, per committee. And I have truly enjoyed that because, again, we missed out on that community aspect for the past 3 years. So, in joining that, it's just so community focused that I've, gained friends there. And I think the part about this, like you're saying, is that it is the stories that are being shared that make it a cooperative, but
Mhm.
also without those responsibilities, we've already had women come on and talk about what their life looks like or give the art class, or the sign language. So it's still
Mhm.
not this like obligation that they're fulfilling, but it is turning into this co-op based on just people using their skills and knowledge and coming on and sharing that with everybody else. So it's
Yeah.
not just their experience, but they are putting what they know like into action in that way.
That's true. It is naturally kind of forming, in the sense of like some people, yeah, like have their own skills, and we've talked about it and they've been like, yeah, sure, like I'd love to do that. And it works out sometimes. And yeah, there's benefits to like the responsibility of it for sure. When it comes to like the other co-op you're in, I totally get that there's responsibilities with that too. I
Right.
just know that like I personally I have struggled with that, and it's probably because I have younger kids. So when I'm going to a co-op like that I'm not running, I really appreciate the ones that are like,
Right, that are
come and
doing
be.
right, absolutely. Well, and even though I'm a member of that co-op, I haven't personally like joined the board.
Mm,
And there's somewhat of a freedom that I know where I don't have to be a part of like making the hard decisions. I'm
yeah,
already a part of a board or several boards,
yeah,
so I probably should join next year because I'll be one of the oldest, but I see my point in saying that is I see how much effort they do have to put into keeping the school up and running
yeah.
and making hard decisions. And it is nice when you have others you can appreciate saying, I understand the work that you put in that
Mm,
I'm just kind of benefiting from, so
yeah.
I I definitely respect and appreciate those and you as well who are putting so much time and effort into making something function.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it's a process in itself, definitely. I do like planning and organizing, so I'm using my own skill to help.
yeah, yeah.
And so with the resources, I know that you've still been kind of going through them. There are quite a bit in there. Do you feel like it's a helpful, like step-by-step process?
As far as like building up a homeschool
Hmm.
or
Yeah, like as far as like
yeah,
getting started homeschooling.
yes. So I was telling you before, I really appreciate your form of prompted questions. It really helps me not only answer things better, but to one, stop and think about my life and what's going on, but also um I'm starting to get into your rhythms of how you're asking these questions like on a day-to-day basis. I really appreciate that too. So now that it's been a few weeks, maybe like a month or two, um those are kind of helping me get into a rhythm here at home. And again, those are, I think, how a lot of those resources are coming in. So you're prompting questions, people are answering with their experiences or maybe a book that they've used or curriculum.
Mhm.
And it's not only allowing me to like research into what they're advising, but to use those rhythms and questions to look at my daily life and say, okay, so we're going to be intentional about this week, right? So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to say, this week we're going to work on these things and hopefully, we can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And so it really is. I'm already seeing a difference rather than our unplanned, somewhat chaotic life to say like this week, these are the things we're going to try and do. Or not only that, but to hear others and their outlook on things like unschooling. We
Mhm.
talked about that,
Yeah.
like I think I was envisioning it has to look like this. And I'm already seeing that my mind is getting away from that. So
You're in your deschooling process.
that's right. You really are. And at the same time, I'm learning and appreciating what's going on in my household as far as homeschooling goes. So
Mhm.
last night we were preparing the dough for this ciabatta bread. And my daughter, oh no, I'm sorry. We were doing pretzels. We were doing pretzels.
Gotcha.
Um, Lots of bread. And we were cutting them up and it had to be in 16s. So we
Mhm.
started with a big loaf and we cut it. And so right there, my daughter is learning about division and it was a
Got
math
math
lesson.
and
And I
science.
was like, right. And I was like, this is it. So it's not that I haven't always had an idea of that, but I'm realizing with this co-op and with these families and the mentalities that they bring and have shared, that's all been a resource for me to kind of reimagine what life looks like, homeschooling looks like, and how to add those into our daily life and appreciate them for that and not be so hard on, am I doing this right? Am I
Yeah.
failing?
Yeah, I was just
So,
about to say the way you worded that reminds me of the fact of like sometimes we feel like we're not homeschooling or like we don't have the time to homeschool. But then when you realize you can combine things like what you're doing with baking and also, that's homeschool. So
yeah,
that can be really helpful for busy moms for sure. And then let me see here. We kind of already talked about the community some. I know we all crave that, and especially since 2020. So I get it. I've always been very community focused. I thrive off of being around people and with people, and we God didn't make us to be alone. So
no, absolutely.
what do you think of the virtual classes within the Flourish Co-op?
I have really appreciated that they're just offered in general. Because, before that, I wasn't really exploring much where others were coming together and sharing anything and allowing the kids or not allowing, but having the kids participate within that.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much better to have others and to say to my daughter like, "Hey, we're going to watch this and see what others are doing."
Mhm.
And, I've only been a part of a couple at this point, but it's a great way to, if we're not going out, if we're not going to a school, to a function, to still have that opportunity to like hop on and be like, this is what we're going to learn. And we're going to do it with others who are, participating as well. So,
Yeah, definitely. You're able to still have that socialization bit and do something together with a community. And more
you,
and more over time, I'll have the kiddos interacting more. I'm kind of letting it flow as it goes, but I will
yeah,
encourage, I'll have some specific classes that are encouraging them more too for even more socialization. I'm actually
right.
working on, since that's a little bit more of an older thing that will want to, happen. So I'm actually working on like a teen co-ops class, like for socialization. So there's different interesting points to that. And it's been really important to me to make it as family centered as possible. So even though I'm looking at it from the viewpoint of like, okay, here's for younger kiddos, here's for older kiddos, here's for moms, I'm also allowing still for like all of the family to participate based on their own capabilities and just interests, whether it's just watching, maybe they can't fully do it, but maybe they can do a part of it, or maybe they can just watch, like maybe they can help the younger sibling. Like there's all these different aspects to really encourage just the family being together as a whole, because that's so important to me and one of my favorite reasons to homeschool, honestly.
Absolutely. And it's really difficult sometimes to figure out how to incorporate learning that fits into all ages. You have to consider developmentally where the kid is.
Yeah.
And so if you're working with three different age groups, how are you going to make that, you know, um, accessible to all of them? And like you're saying, it would be great to take an older child to teach, the younger, this is what we're doing, or somehow take what you're using in that class and just say, okay, how can I make this developmentally appropriate for
Yeah.
this child? And just, use that. If
Yeah.
especially like the art class. I
Mhm.
think that one was for teens, right? And
Yeah.
so that's a good one for them to be able to like watch others
Yeah.
and to practice that. But then how do you take that concept and share it with a 2 or 5-year old,
Yeah.
you know?
I think
And
the youngest that fully participated in that was 6, but she actually did really well. So I was quite impressed. And it's like, see,
yeah,
like for some kiddos, it's going to work out that way. So that's quite interesting to see for sure. Um, what would you tell someone that's thinking about joining the Flourish Co-op and why they should join?
I would definitely just emphasize the community and the aspect of this being moms, families, and kids from all over the country. So when you're asking about homeschooling state laws or, what people's personal experiences have been, you're gaining not only a community, but an understanding of what it looks like for people to live in other places and how they do things. And that's hard to find. When you're going to a place in your local area, you're going to find what only that place knows. And I think there's many benefits to that, right? So while I'm doing this, I'm also looking for co-ops that are like right down the street for me
Mhm.
so that I can help my children like engage with others locally,
Yeah.
but you're missing out on a component where you're getting advice and experiences from people all over. And
Yeah.
so I love that. And I would definitely encourage that if you're considering joining Flourish, that is a way to flourish because you're not just getting like one frame mindset. You're getting this broad spectrum. And I love that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that too, because it's cool to see, like just like you said, like that's how you learn about mindset perspectives you didn't know about. Like when you're around certain things and your perspective is just this is just our own lens. And so
Oh
it's
yeah,
like when you're able to see other points of views, other lenses, you're able to really find something that allows each of us to flourish. So I agree.
absolutely. Yeah, I come from a small hometown in West Virginia, which I love, but my world didn't really grow until I went to college, and then I still stayed in that state. So it still didn't grow a lot. And then when I graduated college, I traveled the country in my car and I met a bunch of people. And then I moved to North Carolina. So it's expanded, but my I wish that it's been even more as far as my experiences have gone, but the more like I've grown and the more I've met people and the more I see like you're saying that lens, it changes. And it's easy to get stuck in this like mindset where it's just a very tunneled vision of what things look like. And I've been very guilty of getting stuck in that mindset. And so when I meet others that can give me like a new outlook or perspective, it helps me grow, it helps my family grow. So
Yeah. definitely. And it's interesting because, God knows the right timing. So he'll work it all out the way it's meant to be. And just reminding ourselves that, giving ourselves some grace in that. Cause yeah, I know we all are just trying to do our best.
Absolutely. And I, again, it's crazy to look at how the world changed, in
Right.
2020. Um, which I feel like would encourage us all even more to do homeschooling and
Yeah.
uh, connect to alternative ways of living. But again, it's easy to get into this isolated way
Hmm.
of living. And so it's so nice to be a part of this where you can hear about what everyone's doing.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you've been able to just experience it and just for it to help your family and flourishing. And I'm very happy to just see how that plays out too. So I appreciate your time, Claire, and thank you for just sharing with me and allowing me to share this to help get the word out to help other families flourish as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Of course. Well, you have a good rest of the day and we will be chatting soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. See you later.